Well, welcome back to another Coffee and a Chat and another Sabbath Journey edition, part number 7. It's been an interesting week. It's been a hard week. I haven't felt that great. I've had some tough days, and I hadn't had them like that for a while, not like what I had this week. There's been some opposition this week, having to deal with a lot of stress, which causes anxiety, and so it's been a challenging week. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. And when I have those challenging weeks, it takes a lot out of me, and I have really been noticing, in fact, the day that I'm filming this, I pretty much just kind of locked myself into the house and tried to avoid having to interact with people, not taking phone calls or anything, because the stress level has just been pretty intense. And I told Marvin, I've just got to be able to step back and just feel like I can even breathe. And so I've done a lot of pulling back. And so that's very interesting that this is what my week's been like, because the point of the Sabbath that I have for this week to meditate on, that I've been studying and will be meditating on when Sabbath takes place, which will be in 24 hours after this video posts. This Sabbath, I will be focusing on being refreshed. So there's a couple scriptures that talk about it, but the one I chose for this video is Exodus 31, verses 16 through 17. And here's what it says. So the sons of Israel shall observe the Sabbath, to celebrate the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me, God, and the sons of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, but on the 7th day he, God, ceased from labor and was refreshed. So when I first started looking at this, I was kind of, as I often am, like, oh, I'm not really sure where this is going to go, or what is there for me to get out of this, or, But the first thing I did is I went to the Hebrew word that is translated of being that God and was refreshed. So the Hebrew word for refreshed that is translated refreshed there simply means to be refreshed. So it's a good translation, very simple, and that's all there is to it. So I'm like, okay, so let's go to the English. And we know what a lot of these things mean, but yet I find that when I go to the dictionary and I start looking at what is written down as a definition, that sometimes gives me some aha moments. So I did that. So first I looked up the word refresh, which means to restore strength to make fresh again, to renew. To make fresh again. Well, what does the dictionary say? And I'm using my old dictionary that's almost 100 years old that my dad used in school, and it was handed down to him from an older relative who had used it in school. This dictionary has been around. As you can see, it has been well used. And is holding together quite well. So anyway, I looked up the word fresh in there, and it says newly produced, gathered, or made. Pure, refreshing, brisk, having the qualities unimpaired as by age, use, or fatigue. Full of vigor, newly made, ready for use. And that was kind of like some aha, as I'm looking at it, to be refreshed is to be rejuvenated, to have everything that, the burdens that have come and kind of wore you down, to lift those off so you're fresh and ready to go again. Well, having a week like I've had that has been challenging on so many levels, I'm looking forward once again, as I do now, to Sabbath and really meditating on the whole idea of being refreshed, because I really need to be. I really need to be. And so as I've been talking to the Lord about this and all, he reminded me of how my life used to be. Not how it is now, but how it used to be. Because my circumstances were different. And I had the finances I needed. I worked for myself. I had my own business, so I could make my own schedule. The man I was married to didn't really care if I left town. I think he kind of liked when I did, because gave him more freedom without me catching him. But what I used to do, and I know I've shared this in other videos and stuff, is I had a very stressful life on very many fronts. My job was stressful. I was a Christian counselor, but I specialized in adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. That was a lot. I did a lot of family counseling, marriage counseling. That could be really stressful. I also, one of the things I specialized in was dealing with PTSD, and even did some work with some veterans. The veterans hospital that was nearest to where I lived and where the guys would go to get help, the psychiatrist there heard about me because I had some clients locally that were vets that were dealing with PTSD that came to me, and God, did a wonderful thing in their life. And so the psychiatrist from the veterans hospital called me up and talked to me, and we talked for quite a while. And she was like, she told me how they were dealing with PTSD, which was basically not dealing with it because they didn't want to do anything that would trigger anybody, blah, 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 blah. And, she goes, we really don't have a lot of success in really helping. And she said, would you be willing to take some referrals? And I was like, yeah. So that was cool. But it's very stressful. It would take a lot out of me. It was exhausting. I maybe would only have, say I only had 3 clients in a day. I tried never to have more than 4, because if it was more than 4, and, and I meant 50 to 60 minutes with each client. But if I had more than 4 in a week, in a day, it was almost more than what I could handle. So I tried never to go over 4, and a lot of times I just would schedule 3. But after the end of the day, when I would go home, I was so exhausted and physically spent. I mean, you would have thought I'd been working out in the gym all day or something, because it took that kind of a toll on me. So I got into this routine because I had to take care of me. I was probably better at taking care of me back then than I am now. Quite honestly, I'm slacking and it shows. But every 3 to 4 months, I would take usually about 4 days, and I would leave town and go away. And a lot of times, there was this one town I liked to go into. There was a motel room or a hotel room, whatever. At this one place, I had been in this town for a meeting and had to stay overnight. And so the room they gave me was this room that it wasn't connected to the rest of the hotel. And it kind of set off by itself. It looked over some woods with deer and stuff walking around. It had a fireplace, a little kitchenette. It was a very nice, very private, very peaceful, restful room. Okay. So I loved that room. So the first time that I decided to do this 4-day thing. You know, I would travel on day 1, get to my destination, and get set up. I took healthy food with me. I took my CD player and my worship songs. I took my Bible. I took my prayer journal. I took my treasure chest, my treasure box of scriptures. I maybe would take a Christian book that I was reading, you know, dependent, but basically that was it. And, you know, and so I had all my stuff together, and I specifically asked for this room. So I had that room reserved. And so I traveled on the first day, get there, and then I'd have 2 full days. And then on the 4th day would be the day that I would check out and go home and travel back home. So when I got there, you know, I checked into my room, I went and got it. And then I set an alarm for an hour before I had to check out on the last day. And that way I would have time to, you know, get ready, take a shower, whatever I needed to do before leaving. Because during that time, if I was tired, I'd lay down and I'd sleep. If I was hungry, I'd get something to eat. But I did not have a regular schedule. My phone was there in case of emergency, but I only took calls from my husband or my kids, or I had a couple of grandkids that were old enough to call me if they had a problem. But they all knew, do not call unless it's an emergency. And I would take a call from my parents. But the people that I would take the calls from, I didn't take calls from clients, though. But the people I did take calls from, they would know, okay, she's going out of town. We don't call unless, you know, we're dying. We don't call. We leave her, let her be. So the first time I went, you know, I got there and I put out, you know, I checked into the room and, you know, and then I put out the do not disturb thing, you know, hanger thing on the door. And I just hung out in there. Well, I think I went there on like Thursday. And then Friday, you know, I'm still in the room because I had everything I needed, and they supplied like those little Presto logs for the fireplace. You know, I lit me a fire, you know, it was wonderful. It was so wonderful. And I just did whatever I felt led to do, you know, and I just spent this time with God. I would call it my date with Jesus. So I'd go away for the weekend with Jesus, and yes, and it was wonderful. But anyway, on Friday late in the day, I got I know the first thing that happened was somebody came to my door and knocked and said housekeeping. And so I thought, well, that's odd because I got the do not disturb, you know, but they didn't like try to come in or anything. So I go and I look through the people, and, you know, and it was, looked like a guy with housekeeping. So I opened the door and, you know, and he said, I'm with housekeeping, and we noticed that, you know, you've had the do not disturb sign out, and we just want to make sure, did you need any clean towels or anything? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And he likes, okay, so everything's fine. And I said, yeah, everything's great. You know, I love it here and everything. And he goes, okay. And so then Saturday, still didn't leave the room, had that hanger on the door, and I got a call from the front office, which was the manager wanting to make sure I was okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I go, somebody stopped by from housekeeping the other day, but I go, you know, I just want some time to just be alone and not to be disturbed. You know, that's the whole reason I came here. So, you know, everything's fine. I don't need anything. And so anyway, so then he goes, we just need to check. And he goes, just a heads up, you know, and I mean, he asked me a lot of questions to make sure I was really okay and stuff. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And he said, you know, he goes, sometimes people get really depressed and it doesn't end very good, and they don't like to do it in their home and make a mess. So they'll check into a hotel room and put out the do not disturb sign and, you know, and check in for a few days. So, you know, and eventually housekeeping finds them. And I was like, oh my. And he goes, we just want to make sure you're not like depressed or something. I'm like, no, everything's fine. And he said, okay, you know, and he goes, just if you come back again, he goes, just let us know when you check in what your plan is and that everything's fine, but you're just, he goes, because we do have people like the writers, and they'll come and check in for a few days and they just don't want to be bothered and, and stuff. And he goes, and if you come back here, he goes, we'll get to know you and everything will be fine. So anyway, it was, that first weekend was wonderful, but it was interrupted a few times because they were worried about if I was really okay, because evidently, if you don't check out of a room, it might not, or, if you don't leave your room when you're there, that's not normal. So anyway, but when I got done and, and was heading home, I felt like a whole new person. I had slept and taken naps when I needed them. I had only ate healthy food and I didn't eat that much. I really didn't get that hungry. And, and I just felt rested. I spent time. I could talk out loud with the Lord. I listened to worship music. It was amazing. And so when I did that first weekend, I knew I wanted to do it again. And so that was my favorite place to go. I had a few other places I went. Sometimes I had friends that lived out of town from where I was. And I know one time some friends of mine that lived a couple of towns over, and they were like, we're going, and they knew what I was doing. They go, we're going to be out of town on such and such a weekend. And we know you like to go away. Would you like to just come stay at our place? There'll be nobody here. Nobody will bug you. And, I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And so they go, and then that way we know that somebody's here, so we won't worry about our place, that there, if there was an emergency or something. And so we just kind of did the trade, but nobody bothered me. It was very peaceful. It was wonderful. My mom and dad, when their house was for sale and they'd moved out, I know I went there and had a wonderful weekend, went and spent some time. When I first got to town, my aunt, who just lived across the street and down a couple of doors, she knew I was coming, and she knew that, why I was coming and that I wanted, some quiet time and all. But she had these tickets to this orchestra thing, and my uncle was supposed to go with her, but then he had a conflict, and so would I like to go on the other ticket? And I was like, yes. And so I went with her and another lady from the church, and we had so much fun. And it was at the beginning when I first got there, and then I spent the rest of the weekend just me and Jesus. And so I used to do that. Every 3 to 4 months, I would take a weekend because I needed that to refresh myself. And I've been thinking about that this week as I've been, talking to God about this and looking at this and preparing for it. And it's like, and I told Marvin today, man, I wish I could do that. Even, when Sabbath comes, I wish I could just take 24 hours and be somewhere else where nobody can bug me. But that's not realistic, not right now. And, and I still have some responsibilities that I have to take care of, and, and so I kind of got to be here. And anyway, but it's that whole, I'm like going, I get it. And so as I'm talking to the Lord about it, he goes, okay, so now he goes, instead of every 3 to 4 months taking, 4 or 5 days to be refreshed, he goes, I already set it up this way. So that when the end of the week comes on that 7th day, you get a complete rest. It says that over and over again, that it's a complete rest. And, that you can be renewed, refreshed, rejuvenated. And so that when the Sabbath comes to the end and the new week starts, those 6 days that follow, now you're ready for them. You've got the energy you need. You've got the clearness of mind. You've de-stressed. That's why I'm looking forward to, for this weekend, I'm looking forward to the Sabbath because it has been such a stressful week, and I need to just let that stress go. Last weekend I was really trying to focus on just being, because, if you've been watching my videos, you know that God really convicted me that I organized everything. Not that that's a problem, but I even was trying to organize him and organize how the Sabbath goes, because I didn't know how to just be, how to just exist in it. And so that was my challenge. And I know that that Cass was having that same challenge too. And Cass, I hope you did good through it. I got through it, and I kept going, just every time I'd catch myself trying to, think, I need to, okay, stop, just be. I I don't know. It was kind of funny. It made me laugh a few times, but I'm getting it, and I will say, and I had somebody this week go, that they don't get what the big deal is about the Sabbath. We're not under the law anymore. Why would anybody want to do that? And that's fine. And again, let me say this again, because I probably can't say it too many times. I'm not trying to convince anybody else they need to keep the Sabbath. I'm the only one in my household that's trying to do it. I don't bug the other guys about it. I don't tell them, you should be doing this. You need to do that. Not at all. To me, it's a very personal thing between God and I. I'm not legalistic about it. I don't think, and if you saw my very first video introducing this whole thing, then you'll know that the whole idea of Sabbath has not sat well with me for a lot of years, because I've had people try to shove it down my throat. I've been told I couldn't even be saved if I wasn't keeping the Sabbath, that I really wasn't obedient to the Lord, that I wasn't committed to. I mean, and their version of the Sabbath does not line up with what the scripture says. And so when I started this journey, because the Lord started to deal with my heart on it, because I was trying to, I would just read past any Sabbath verses really fast in the Bible, because I was so uncomfortable with the whole thing. And it's not good to be like that. So God needed to deal with that in me. And so I've been, just not trying to listen to what other people are saying, is about the Sabbath, but trying to just, what does the Bible say? And these are the things that my meditation points, because it says a lot about it. And so I try to have one specific thing that I focus on, just really trying to meditate on that during the Sabbath, of understanding it and seeing how that incorporates there. I don't tell, you guys know I'm doing it, but like around here, unless they watch my videos, people wouldn't know. I don't make a big deal. I don't say, oh, I can't go do that because I'm observing the Sabbath, or, well, that's Sabbath, so I couldn't. I don't do that. And now with Marvin, he and I will talk about it, and there'll be some things that I might opt out of. Like I know he was going to go to the store, and we'll get to one of the things about where it says not to buy or sell. And I told him I probably shouldn't, because I'm trying to observe this, because I want to know the benefits. And I want to see what happens when you keep the Sabbath. And it was very awkward in the beginning, because there's just so much to learn about it. But as I'm learning things and getting more and more comfortable with it, I love what is happening in my life, and just taking that time to rest, whether we're under the law or not. There is still, I'm finding for me, there is a benefit in keeping the Sabbath, because one thing is, I'm terrible at resting. I have somewhere in life, I forgot how to rest. I have forgot how to step back and just take a break. I allow too much piling on me. There's so much stuff that needs to be done. And every day I was just having that horrible burden on me 7 days a week. And I will say now that I've been doing this, I'm also finding, and I think I've said this before too, but one of the big things is I am more productive in those 6 days now than I ever was in 7. I'm more purposeful and intentional on those days. I had cut myself some slack of what really needs to be done or not done, and how to handle things. So now I'm hoping that that this week I'm really going to gain more insight on being refreshed, because I need that. And so it's not surprising to me to have the week I've had, because I'm desperate to be refreshed, because it has just been such a heavy week. So I'm doing these videos because I feel like that there's benefit, or there has been, when God's dealing with something in my life, if I can go ahead and be vulnerable enough to be transparent with you and talk about it and show you what God's doing, that it touches another, there's always somebody that's touched by that. Somebody that's going through something similar, somebody that relates to it, somebody that needed to hear that. And, and I think that's just part of the ministry that God's given me in this season, is being transparent and being vulnerable and sharing these things that are going on. My brother called this week and we talked for a little bit, and I told him, look, here's 2 things that God has pointed out to me that I need to work on. I need to get delivered from. So when you pray for me, pray for them. If I run a risk, because I suppose he could go, well, you're just a wackadoodle, or wow, what a mess you are. Who wants to be that messed up, or he can love me and care about me as I know he does and pray for me. And God will make a huge difference in my life. So we need to sometimes, I think, be willing to just be who we are and let somebody see that. And so that's why I do this. And I told the Lord, because I knew these would not be popular videos. I knew that a lot of people are triggered by the whole Sabbath thing. I'm not alone in that. But I had told him, because I, believed that he told me to be doing this and how to do it, what he wanted me to do. So that's what I'm doing. And I said, even if there's just one person that it makes a difference, then it's worth it. And I think I average about 10 views on a video with the Sabbath is all. 10. I used to get a lot more than that. But I have found at least 2 people that are doing this journey for, because God has laid it on their hearts. And this came at a time, especially for one of them, when they weren't really sure how to do this, and it just seemed like or if they should or whatever, and then, but they felt God dealing with them, and it's just been a confirmation to them, and so they're on their journey. And another one who's been on the journey for a while, but felt kind of alone, and so now they feel like they can be journeying with somebody else going through it too, and we email back and forth and share things with each other, and then there's a third person that is kind of riding the fence on dealing with stuff, and that's good. And it's fine. And I'm not trying to tell anybody, well, here's what you should do. And here's not, and I don't know, there may be others. Those are just the ones that have communicated something to me. So I don't think that everybody, when God deals with my heart and that he wants to do something with me, I don't think everybody else needs to be going through that same thing. I don't think that he needs to do exactly in you what he's doing in me. I don't think you need to do exactly what I'm doing or feel the same conviction I'm feeling. Each one of us has our own personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and he will meet each one of us right where we're at. And he will bring to us the things that are important at this moment for our lives. And we're not all going to be alike. We're not going to feel the same or look the same or anything. We're all parts of one body. We're not all big toes. There's only 2 big toes. We're not all, the fingernail on a pinky. There's only 2 of those. We're not all a nose. There's only 1 of those, but each one of us has a part in the body. And when we all come together, we make a complete body. But we can't all do the same thing and look the same way and act the same, because we have different functions, different responsibilities, different roles to play in this whole thing, to make things be what they're supposed to be. So each one of us functions. That's the word I want. We each have our own function for the part of the body we're in and where we're at. And so I just want to make that clear one more time. This is not an attempt to get people to come on over to my side and start keeping the Sabbath. I don't even know. I think, my feeling is that I will probably quietly be observing the Sabbath for the rest of my days, because it has become so precious to me having this time with God. I mean, I spend time with him all throughout the week, yes, but this is, when the Sabbath comes, it's different because all the focus now. I'm not worrying about the other things that I would be doing in a normal day. I don't have to, I try to do some preparation. I've got to do better on that on Fridays. But even if I don't get food made, my husband and my grandson, they know how to feed themselves. And this one day a week, I'm allowed, to not have to do that. I'm allowed to let them be on their own for it and not be responsible for taking care of that. That's the only day of the week that I get that for, and they give that to me because I'm trying to observe the Sabbath. So it is different. It's not like the other days. And there is a benefit from that I gain out of that. So I would imagine for the rest of my days that I will continue to, like I said, quietly observe the Sabbath. It's not making a big deal out of it, or, or, hey, everybody, I'm not going to be doing anything on Saturday because it's my Sabbath. And like I've known people who do that. It's not like that. But even if it was just for a season, just to learn, just to understand, because there is a lot of spiritual stuff that I'm gaining out of this. And I do feel that my relationship with Christ has grown more intimate, that I have gained intimacy with him each week as I do this. I'm learning a lot. Not necessarily good stuff, but a lot about myself and who I really am. And I'm seeing a lot of my rough edges that need to be taken care of. I'm seeing stuff bubble up that I thought I had dealt with, but here it is still there. And a lot of that is because I think that I have an opportunity on the Sabbath to listen better than I do during the week, because I don't have so many distractions. So this is an Angie journey. I'm not asking it to be anybody else's journey. This is an Angie journey, Angie and Jesus. And I'm just sharing it with you and letting you peek in at it, because even if it's not about keeping the Sabbath for you, the things I'm learning and stuff, whether you keep Sabbath or not, you need to be refreshed. We all need to be refreshed. We all need to be renewed. And I know there's people say, well, you can do that every day with Christ. Yeah, maybe you can. But there are times when you have to, because things can be so overwhelming and just be so much on you, that you have to make the opportunity to be able to really be refreshed. You have to step back at times. You have to make that choice to step back from the things that are bombarding you so that you can be rejuvenated and gain that strength you need to go at them. But it's like almost like a breathing thing, for me now, that I need that seventh day. All the cares of the week that, from the 6 days that came before, all that stuff that's been piled on me. On that seventh day, I get to let go of that and let God speak to the need that is in me, and to encourage me and refresh me and instruct me and convict me and whatever it is that needs to be done. And that is my focus for 24 hours. How can you not gain some benefit from focusing on the Lord for 24 hours without the typical distractions? Because life goes on. You're not going to be able to do that 7 days a week. There will be distractions because there are responsibilities that we have. There are things we have to do. There are people we have to interact with. But to be able to set aside one day to do our best to step back from all of that, how can you not gain a benefit. So I'm not surprised by how this is turning out for me. I am surprised that I love it as much as I do. Didn't in the beginning. Like I said, it was frustrating. But now, I will even count down the hours till Sabbath starts today. I was looking, I've got this many more days, this many more hours, whatever. It's going to be Sabbath because I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I need it. So just that's the point. So if you're on this journey, whether it's for Sabbath or not, just even think on and talk with the Lord about what it means and how to do it on being refreshed, because I guarantee you need it. We all do. Okay, I think that's all I got to say, which this went long and I really didn't think it would. I thought, well, what's there going to be to say about it? But here it is. So I love you guys. I hope you're doing well. Shabbat shalom, shalom. And I love you. I'll talk to you again real soon.